every year in the NFL, a team will let go of their head coach and bring in somebody new to help jumpstart the franchise. Well, this year, teams really wanted a fresh start because 10 different teams decided to let go of their head coach, including 6 from 2 divisions. Let's go over these new head coaches and what the expectations could be in 2026. Hey guys, Dick Support here, back with another video. And for this video, I decided to do this by when the teams let go of their head coach, not when teams hire their new head coach. And no rhyme or reason for it, I just wanted to do it this way. And let's just jump right in. So the first team to let go of their head coach was the Tennessee Titans when they let go of Brian Callahan during the season. And the fact that he got a second year was kind of a shock to pretty much everybody. Everyone in the football world could not believe that. But he's out and Robert Saleh comes in. Now Saleh, we know he did not have a good time as the Jets head coach. But then again, it's the Jets. I mean, not a lot of head coaches are succeeding there right now. And bringing in offensive defensive coordinators that have been in this league for a while. Brian Daboll, who was formerly the Giants head coach that I will talk about later. And you bring in Gus Bradley, who's been a defensive-minded coach for a long time in this league, was the head coach of the Jacksonville Jaguars. At one point, was the defensive coordinator when the Seahawks won the Super Bowl. So these two have been around. Bringing in those two, I think, was a smart move to make. Tennessee could surprise people next year. It just depends on what they do in free agency in the draft. They're going to have a lot of money to spend. They have a high draft pick. We'll see what Tennessee will do. But getting Robert Saleh a second chance, we'll see how it works out. I mentioned the New York Giants. Brian Daboll was the second head coach to be let go again during the NFL season. And taking over from him is former Ravens head coach John Harbaugh. Harbaugh had been the head coach of the Ravens since 2008, got them to the Super Bowl in 2012, famously took down his brother in that game. Now he is the new head coach of the Giants, and there's going to be a lot for this team to do. Jackson Dart had a really good rookie season. It's a shame they couldn't get that number 1 overall pick because they would have gotten a trade haul, but they still have a top 5 pick. We'll see what they pick there. Matt Nagy's going to take over as the offensive coordinator. That kind of scares me a little bit because Andy Reid kind of let him go as the Chiefs offensive coordinator. And to be let go by Andy Reid, of all people, kind of brings up some red flags. And then Denard Wilson will be taking over as the defensive coordinator, was formerly with the Tennessee Titans. We'll see how this works out for Harbaugh. He could be one or done, or he could lead the Giants to success. I don't know if there's anything in between. Atlanta was the next team to let go of their head coach, with Raheem Morris going out and incoming Kevin Stefanski, with his offensive coordinator Tommy Reese following him from Cleveland. And Atlanta will be keeping their defensive coordinator, so I'm not going to get into all of that with him. But with Stefanski and Reese, it is a little bit concerning because this past year was not the best look for them with how they handled the whole Shedeur Sanders, Dylan Gabriel, just the whole quarterback situation in general led to a lot of question marks. And it wasn't just about Sanders, it was just everything that happened this year. But he's also a 2-time Coach of the Year recipient, got Cleveland to their first playoff win since the 90s. Got to keep that in mind. They had struggled mightily, and Stefanski's the one that kind of brought some stability to this Cleveland franchise. It just wasn't enough. So will it work out in Atlanta? I'm not entirely sure. The first thing they got to figure out is Michael Penix the future. Do they want him to be the starter next year and years beyond? We will find out after Penix has another knee injury, which he suffered a lot of during his time at Indiana. A lot of decisions need to be made in Atlanta, and we'll see what they decide. Speaking of Stefanski's old team, the Browns hired Todd Monken to be their head coach, with Travis Switzer as the offense coordinator. He was formerly of the Ravens, and Mike Brudenberg, I want to say that's how you say it, formerly of Atlanta, taking over as defensive coordinator. Now, with Monken, I mean, 23 and 24 speak for themselves when it comes to what the Baltimore Ravens were able to do, as he was the offensive coordinator during that time. The fact that Georgia won back-to-back championships with him as their offensive coordinator. But now he's taken over as head coach. This is a tall task for Monken, and it's really a tall task for anyone taking over as the Browns head coach just because of what's been going on with them since they came back into the league and just all the things that goes on within that front office itself. I mean, it's very dysfunctional. I hate saying that word, but it truly is. So he has to navigate all that, and we'll see if he can handle it. We'll see if he can't. I don't know what's going to happen with this. I really don't. But am I optimistic? Not really. After letting go of Pete Carroll, the Raiders were the last team to hire a new head coach. That's because they hired the offensive coordinator of the Super Bowl champion Seattle Seahawks, Clint Kubiak, who brought his quarterbacks coach from Seattle to the Raiders as the offensive coordinator. Rob Leonard was promoted from within, so he was in the Raiders organization for the past few years. Now he's the defensive coordinator. And for Kubiak, he's got the first overall pick. More than likely it's going to be Fernando Mendoza. But the Raiders do need a lot of work. I wouldn't expect to turn around right away, but if they can make the right moves, I mean, 2 to 3 years, they could be competing again. That's how fast things change in the NFL, but I wouldn't expect it right away, especially with a rookie quarterback. Potentially, with the Raiders, it's going to be a lot of hard work, but if they can make the right moves, they could be competing sooner rather than later. Arizona let go of Jonathan Gannon, and in comes Mike LaFleur. Yes, Matt LaFleur's brother. Now, Mike was the offensive coordinator for the LA Rams. He brings in Nathaniel Hackett as offensive coordinator. Yes, we know about the situation in Denver when he was the head coach, but Hackett, he's been an offensive coordinator before in this league, has had success there, and they did not change their defensive coordinator just like Atlanta. That was the last team that did not change a coordinator role in 2026. So it was just those two teams that kept their defensive coordinator and nobody kept their offensive coordinator. Now, with LaFleur, he's got a lot to live up to because his brother has done so well with the Green Bay Packers and because of what that Rams team has been able to do the past few years with him as the offensive coordinator. And going to the Cardinals, I mean, the Cardinals have had success in this league in the last few years. However, it's sporadic. It's not as consistent as you want to see. And Gannon just was not the guy to get them back to success. So now you're bringing in LaFleur and you're hoping that he can be 3/4 as good as his brother. If he is, the Cardinals could be back in the playoffs. But if he's not, the Cardinals are going to be looking for another head coach in the next 2 or 3 years. The next thing we're going to talk about, it was kind of a shock when they let go of their head coach. John Harbaugh was let go after being the head coach since 2008, and in comes Jesse Minter, who is the defensive coordinator of the LA Chargers. Now, for Minter, he had a wonderful season with the Chargers. Without that defense, they don't make the playoffs, and they were in that game for the Patriots for the longest time because of their defense. Their offense couldn't get anything going, but the Chargers defense was able to handle that Patriots defense for as long as they could, and it just wasn't enough for them to get that win, but it was no fault to the defense whatsoever. You're bringing in Declan Doyle, who was the offensive coordinator for the Bears last year, and the reason why he's coming in from Chicago, because now he gets to call his own plays, because of course it was Ben Johnson that was calling the plays for Chicago last year, so now he gets an opportunity to do that. But with what they were able to do with Caleb Williams, and now you're bringing him in to help out Lamar Jackson and this Ravens offense, I am pretty optimistic about what they can do with that. And then former Raven Anthony Weaver comes in as a defensive coordinator. Didn't have a great season with the Miami Dolphins, but he knows the organization, knows the players, used to be a coach before he got hired as the defensive coordinator of the Dolphins. And I am pretty excited because the Ravens are a team that just make the right moves when it comes to things. Not all the time, but most of the time. And I think you have to give the Ravens the benefit of the doubt with this one. I know it was a shock, and I know some people still are debating whether it was the right move or not. To me, it was the right move because of the things that were happening. It seemed like they just couldn't get over that hump, and sometimes bringing in somebody new is the way to go. Now, let's see if it works out. Again, I'm optimistic, but things happen in the NFL. It is never a guarantee. Next up are the Miami Dolphins, who let go of Mike McDaniels, brought in Jeff Hafley, and they bring in Sean Duggan of the Green Bay Packers as their defensive coordinator, and Bobby Slowick to be the offensive coordinator. Now, Slowick, he did have not so great moments with the Houston Texans as their offensive coordinator, so we'll see if that works out. This was kind of the most underwhelming hires, I will say. I'm not saying it's going to be a bad hire, but it's just the one that got fans least excited. And I do understand that when it comes to Jeff, but he can all turn it around if the Dolphins start winning again. And now the question is going to be, what happens with Tua Tagovailoa? It's going to be an issue for them to get out of that contract this year. Maybe they can work something out, maybe not. It's going to be easier next year, but not necessarily this year. We'll see what they decide there. That's going to be the first big decision to be made. And Dolphins could be a team that shocks people. I don't know. I don't. If they make the right moves, anything can happen. 2 teams left, both of them playoff teams, and the first one was the Pittsburgh Steelers. Mike Tomlin stepped down as head coach after being there since 2007, got them to 2 Super Bowls, winning 1, but it just seemed it was a standstill with them for the longest time. They would get to the playoffs, but get bounced in the first round. It was a worse scenario in the NFL. They were not necessarily good enough to be Super Bowl contenders, but they weren't bad enough to where they were picking in the top 10. That's kind of the worst thing to be in sports. And with it comes Mike McCarthy. Kind of a shocker, but not really. I'll get to why. For defensive coordinator, they brought in the Raiders' former defensive coordinator, Patrick Graham, and then brought in somebody from Minnesota, Ryan Angelchella. I don't know. I don't know. I completely butchered that. I am sorry. I am terrible with pronunciation. But Brandon McCarthy, I know he won a Super Bowl with the Packers. And I know he had success as the Cowboys head coach. But at this point, I don't know if that was the right move to make, especially since with the Steelers, there's a reason why they've only had 3 head coaches since 1969. It was Chuck Noll, then Bill Cowher, then Mike Tomlin. All 3 of those guys were young, up-and-coming assistants that they took chances on, but this head coach of 2 different franchises, and the way it ended with both franchises wasn't great. I don't know what's gonna happen here with McCarthy. Can he still prove that he can produce a good football team? I'm not entirely sure. Maybe we get another year of Aaron Rodgers as well, because McCarthy, I mean, he was the head coach when Rodgers won that Super Bowl with the Packers, so maybe Rodgers decides to run it back another year. Again, this is kind of shocking because I just didn't expect the Steelers to do this. I did expect them to go with a young, up-and-coming assistant. I just did not expect this whatsoever, so I'm not entirely sure what I feel about this. Maybe it'll work out. I don't know. And the last one was Sean McDermott being let go by the Buffalo Bills. Now, again, I do understand this one because the Bills were just on the cusp. They were always on the cusp. They were always Super Bowl contenders, but they couldn't get over the hump. And this was supposed to be their year, and they get bounced in the divisional round. And you can blame the refs all you want, but Josh Allen threw 4 interceptions, and there were some questionable decisions being made throughout the season with the Bills. I get it. I do get it. But what I don't get is bringing in Joe Brady, who was with the team. I would have thought they would have brought in somebody new to kind of give a new message and kind of bring new energy. But Brady's been there. He knows McDermott's way. I just don't know if this was the way to go for the Buffalo Bills. And you're bringing in Pete Carmichael. Now, Pete Carmichael had been the longtime offensive coordinator for the Saints. He was there until 2023. And when I say long time, his first year was when the Saints won the Super Bowl in 2009. That's how long he was their offensive coordinator. But the last few years wasn't terrific with the Saints. And then also they bring in Jim Leonard of the Denver Broncos. Now the Broncos had a tremendous defense, and Leonard has been an up-and-coming name in the coaching world. Maybe it'll work out, alright? Maybe that's all the Buffalo Bills needed to do, just get somebody new in there. But again, Brady's been with the team. I don't know if promoting from within should have been the way to go. You never know. It's like I said earlier, nothing is a guarantee in the NFL, and moves that you think are great don't always work out, and moves that you think are head scratchers turn out to be the best ones a team can make. Alright guys, those were my thoughts on the NFL head coaching hires. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. Who do you think had the best hire, and which hire do you think was the most underwhelming? Alright, I'll see you guys next time.